there are three things absolutely necessary for a dog to learn. These things can make the difference between the dog learning the behavior really well or not learning it at all, or kind of knowing it but not be 100% sure. And these three things are, remember this, is timing, consistency, and motivation. So timing, consistency, motivation. Timing, all that means is you have to be aware that there is an ideal time between consequence and behavior. So if a dog does something and then 3 hours later the dog receives the consequence of that behavior, it makes it very difficult for the dog to pair up that consequence to the behavior. I'm not saying that dogs are not intelligent, that they're not smart. They're actually very smart. But your chances of connecting the meaning of a consequence to a behavior are a lot better, a lot higher if the timing is within 1.3 seconds. That's not something you're going to remember. You're not going to count this. You're not going to do your 1.3 second countdown. But the good rule of thumb is the sooner that you can pair up the consequence to the behavior, the better. When I say consequence, a lot of times people think, corrections, punishment. And it's not the case. A consequence doesn't have to be a bad consequence. Consequence could be a reward. That's all a consequence is. A consequence is something that happens afterwards. Okay, so don't get caught up in the consequence means bad things. I know it has a little bit of a negative connotation to it, but it's not the case. Consistency, meaning once you teach the dog something, you want to be consistent. It has to mean the same thing every single time. If sometimes it has a different meaning, then the chances of this dog learning that behavior are going to be very, very difficult. The dog might just learn it by chance, but you don't want to take chances when you're teaching something. If I'm teaching a new behavior, or if I'm trying to teach a new behavior pattern, I want my rules to be the same every single time. So remember that. The timing has to be on point. Once you get the timing right, you have to be consistent. Every single time you do this, you want to provide the right consequence consistently. So timing, consistency, motivation. The motivation comes in the form of either I want the dog to be very motivated to do something, or in some cases, I want the dog to be motivated to not do it again. So in general, teaching something, I want the dog to learn the behavior and want to do it again and again and again and again, right? That's kind of teaching a behavior. So if my dog is very motivated by toys or very motivated by praise or food, I want to use that to let the dog know, hey, every time you do this, you're going to get paid, right? You're going to get paid on the right time frame, and you're going to get paid consistently if you do this. If I'm trying to have the dog stop a behavior, if I'm teaching him a new behavior pattern, if I'm teaching him to behave a certain way where some behaviors are undesirable, and I am going to provide some unpleasant consequences in the form of either negative punishment or positive punishment. If you don't understand the difference between negative and positive punishment, look it up. It's actually not as horrific as it might sound. But I want the dog to be able to know, hey, when I do this, this thing that is not that great happens. Maybe it's, a correction from the leash. Maybe it's, I lose this privilege. Maybe it's, I don't get to play. I lose out on the reward. That's what motivation is. The dog has to have a strong enough reason to do something, and also strong enough reason to not want to do something. Timing, consistency, motivation. These three things are how a dog learns a new behavior or a new behavioral pattern.